This is the premier event talking about grid in DC ever. But we should all be talking about grid. Grid is the hot topic. It is the most fundamental topic to energy security, national security, the economy.
It's really to get things started, get people innovating, make the states invest more, get private sector investing more, because the challenge can't be met with federal funding, especially with the grid.
Sometimes the failures can be more replicable, in my opinion, than some of the successes.
So we see the trend at the time: smart meter, single phaser, distribution automation, and also at the time the focus on PMS. But now we see the trends kind of shifting.
And these are projects that are just taking the first couple of steps forward, so then everyone else can follow.
So our next panel is, well, they're working on Kerrick's hair. I see it back there. Our next panel is going to be moderated by Jeannie, Salo, one of our august board members from Schneider Electric, Scaling Energy Innovation, Strategies for Widespread Deployment and Grid Modernization. And there goes our sign. So come on forward, and Jeannie, I'm going to let you take the helm.
Well, hello, everyone. As Karen mentioned, I'm Jeannie Salo, Chief Public Policy Officer from Schneider Electric. I am delighted to be here. I am a board member. We are a sponsor of this conference. I really believe in the GridWise Alliance and the work they're doing. This is the premier event talking about grid in DC ever. But we should all be talking about grid. Grid is the hot topic. It is the most fundamental topic to energy security, national security, the economy. So I'm officially changing the name of our panel to The Grid is Sexy. And we're going to tell you why. So the focus of this panel is talking about deployment at scale of solutions that are going to truly modernize the grid, innovate the grid, and get us where we need to go. And we know we need to go there. Why? Because we heard so many presentations yesterday about the impending load growth. Do we have any Game of Thrones fans? Like, winter is coming, load growth is coming. We heard recently from FERC that we're looking at 38 gigawatts of peak load demand in the next 5 years. And this is serious stuff. So what we're going to talk about in our panel is the how, some of the examples of some of the individual things that are happening already on the grid, what we need to scale faster and replicate. And I'm just going to kind of wrap up with a metaphor that I use often when I'm talking about the grid. It's a car. It's like a car. We're driving it. It's working. We can get where we want to go. The only problem is to continue to drive it into the future. We need to, change out the transmission, rewire everything, put new software in place, electrify it, maybe get a battery, some storage. There are so many things that we need to do to truly modernize this car that we are all driving together that's powering our economy. And we have to do it while we are driving it, 100 miles an hour down the highway. And we are all going to have to think about how to do this faster and accelerate, because the grid is underpinning every other thing we want to do that is a bipartisan priority. Investing in, bringing more manufacturing into the United States, building out the supply chain, dominating in the AI race, continuing to be innovative, building out an electric infrastructure with all of the funding that has been received. Everything requires the grid. And so everyone who does advocacy in this room with anyone should always be putting grid at the top of your list on any public policy priority. And this is true for any company, anywhere that wants to do anything, that has power. So with that, I'm going to introduce our amazing panel. We have Kristen from the Department of Energy. We have Vince from the Virginia Department of Energy, and he's going to bring us some insights from Virginia, where they're having to bring on a lot of data centers. We have Kerrick Johnson and his great hair. He is the Chief Innovation and Communications Officer from the Vermont Electric Power Company, VELCO. And we have Ann Moore, who is from AVEVA, and they are a software company innovating and digitizing on the grid and doing great things. And so I'm going to start off with a question to everybody. When we're talking about the how, we're going to get there. right? We know the issues, we know what we need to do, but the how. I want to start with a question about the federal funding, because this was a huge wind in our sails, $65 billion in federal funding. And so I want to open it up to talk to you about, and I'm going to ask Kristen to start with the perspective of the DOE to kind of just lay the land, how much has gone out, how much remains, what's it supposed to do? How is this helping to accelerate the mission? And then I'm going to have every one of you answer, and from your perspective, how are you using the federal dollars? So let me start with you.
Yeah, thanks for having me on the panel.
Yes.
Big question about all the federal funds. I mean, obviously, it's been a busy 2 years at the DOE for me. I was originally the grid program lead, actually changed over offices, but still working on the grid because it is sexy, I think. I mean, all of the funds from both BIL and IRA, you know, the goal is catalyze. You know, it's not this is going to fix everything right now. This is going to be the thing that pushes us into the demonstration, into the deployment scale. And, you know, to build on your Game of Thrones reference, I think like chaos is a ladder. And so you can kind of bubble up from all these activities, everything DOE is investing in. You know, I think GRIP is one that this audience is probably very familiar with, the Grid Resilience Innovation Partnership Program. I actually see Bill, he's part of the team, one of our selectees. I'm sure many of you are part of the teams. But there's also other programs, not only in the Grid Deployment Office, but also the Manufacturing Office is investing in workforce development. You know, this is something looking towards the future to make sure we have enough power engineers, make sure we have enough manufacturing jobs. The Office of Clean Energy Demonstrations is working on projects on distributed energy systems, on clean energy on mine lands. And these are projects that are just taking the first couple of steps forward, so then everyone else can kind of follow along that path.
All right, so let me ask my other colleagues here. So have you benefited from some of the federal funding, and on this idea of it being a catalyst, has it been working that way for you?
I'll start. Am I mic'd up? All right.
Yes.
There it comes. In Virginia, obviously, we're a very purple state, like the senator was talking. Colorado is. Our governor is Republican. We had recognized the opportunity with the federal funding as once in a lifetime. In our office, the governor said, I want Virginia to get more than their fair share of federal funding, and we in the State Energy Office have taken that to heart. Our agency's on track to manage over almost $1 billion in funding if everything comes through that we think will come through. And that comes from managing about $75 million in funding before. So it's definitely changing the State Energy Office. We're going to grow from about 9 staff to probably 35 staff. So it's definitely been historic and game-changing in Virginia. And the reason we knew that we have to work on these issues is because of the tremendous demand growth that we saw back in 2022 when we did the governor's energy plan. We saw what was coming. We really put out a policy that said, hey, we have to deal with this demand. It's an all-of-the-above approach. But we also recognize the federal funding there was an opportunity there. We did win a GRIP award, which we're in the middle of negotiation, and we're trying to obligate that to focus on deployment of microgrids and batteries on data centers in South Carolina and Virginia. But we also, a big component of that federal funding is to fund up to 3 people to work on the data center grid transmission and the public outreach needed to help us continue data center growth. Because I don't think our governor's not going to throttle data center growth. We're going to meet the challenges, we're going to meet the demand, and allow the industry to keep moving because we feel it's important to Virginia. It brings a lot of dollars into Virginia. And I don't think the U.S. wants to lose the AI race to China. So we're moving forward with meeting those challenges. We've also, not just competitive grants, we're getting ready to work with Oak Ridge National Labs through DOE funding to really dig into this issue. So we've taken advantage of all the different aspects of the federal funding. And I'm a glass half full person. We're moving ahead like no dollars are going to be reverted and the train's going to keep moving, because the reality of the situation is not going to change just because we change who's in office. We have to meet the demand. It's going to take private and public dollars. So that's what we're doing.
Very helpful. Kerrick, want to share your experience?
Sure.
overall?
Thank you to the GridWise Alliance for having me be here. We're a longtime member, strong supporter of the Alliance, so thank you for that. Two things I want to say about VELCO, just so you understand why I'm saying what I'm saying. And I'm mindful that when you come to these things, what's useful for you, what's replicable, what's the real stuff that's happening. So I'll endeavor to be focused on that. Two things about VELCO. One, our ownership. We're owned by 17 distribution utilities and a public benefits corporation. Two, the money. We are a for-profit. Profits determined by FERC, but we're actually structured to deliver benefits like a co-op. So said another way, we do a good job. Every dollar we save or every dollar we earn finds its way directly into the pockets of ratepayers. So in the context of GRIP funding, honestly, we weren't as organized and said, here we go, we're gonna launch a big office and do this. And I guess in case you don't know, Vermont is an incredibly blue state. Well, we'll say that right now. However, there is a streak of populism, of frugality, of resourcefulness, and that's what you're finding in the grid. So what we endeavored to do, and I think there's some lessons here, yes, we got a GRIP grant, but actually, when you're a state as small as we are, and I don't like to use raw numbers because we're so small, the important thing is the percentage. We're a 1,000 megawatt load, but we're at 60% renewable at times of peak in the summer, 60%. So it's not like we're smarter than everyone else. We've had to innovate to stay ahead and keep the system on. So one of the things, and Vermont's a relatively poor state. We know that. So when we saw the opportunity for GRIP grants is how can we get more out of the grid we have? Because transmission, as a transmission-only company, takes a long freaking time to build. So what can you do now to get more stuff out of the grid? What we saw was the opportunity to partner with a grid-enhancing technology company, an excellent company called Smart Wires. Joanne Lowcamp, a wonderful CEO, if you know her, she's great. They are helping us install their Smart Wires technology, which obviates the need to buy another phase-shifting transformer, which is about the size of this room. And Vermont doesn't have a lot of big roads, so when you move one of those things, the whole state almost knows about it. So by installing this Smart Wires technology, we're able to better integrate additional renewables in-state. We're better able to control what energy, what electrons want to come in, and when we can send them out. And further, it helps us save more money in terms of how much additional transmission we have to build. Vermont actually has a statutory obligation to do everything we can to not build transmission. So by the time we get to the public, we have a pretty honed message with regards to that. So mindful of time, why don't I stop there?
All right, Ann, let me ask you your experience with federal funding, GRIP. How have you been leveraging that with your customers?
Sure, yeah, from a technology supplier perspective, we just love it. Yeah. Because this can drive our innovation and we can showcase our technology and also partnership, a lot of consortium collaboration. But most important thing is to give us an opportunity so we can reach out to our customer or non-customer and say we can find out, it's a discussion, we can find out their challenges and what kind of a solution we can contribute and also the opportunity. So either we participate the project, the submission, or we don't, we continue. So just an engagement process for us is it's just a great opportunity for all the industry getting together to collaborate.
All right, so I want to turn from how are we using federal dollars to the application of those dollars to some kind of a strategic, right, mission. And these programs are designed to be kind of applications that come from different people. You've got unique examples in Vermont that have to deal with your challenges, your weather, your population's needs. You've got a completely different set of challenges in Virginia, data centers, and what's happening there. And again, that's going to be a model for other states for sure. But in a strategic way, is there enough going on with the federal funding and the private funding and the sharing of best practices to have more strategic investments that we need over the long term? And I'm gonna just add a little bit more to that kind of broad question and say, the GridWise Alliance, one of the deliverables of the GridWise Alliance is their Grid Modernization Index, where they talk about where people stand, which is a really cool product and should be examined closely. But if we were to look at the GMI index in 5 years and look at how things have changed, is this program and the design of this program going to make the impacts that we need it to make? Opine.
Well, I'll go. Okay, fine. One thing I should have mentioned with regards to our smart wires investment is we did not highlight the fact that we had federal funding. We earned support from the region's ratepayers. The 6 New England states, long story short, are joined at the wallet. So a transmission investment for reliability purposes is shared among the New England states, and the cost is shared along a load ratio share basis. Vermont's 4% of the load, we pay 4% of every reliability investment within New England. We only added the grant oh, by the way, but wait, there's more. We have this federal grant that we have. We didn't make that carry the message. The message we felt needed to carry itself as to its value. And then you asked a lot. Okay, I'm going to try and remember. I would say this. There's been successes. We were, in fact, I think we were the only statewide, remember the American Resource and Recovery Act? And Vermont actually did one statewide application. And that resulted in really accelerated statewide deployment of smart meters. We're at 88 to 92% deployment of smart meters. Concurrently, separate funding, but VELCO vastly expanded its fiber optic network. So now we have retail deployment of smart meters. We have a backbone of fiber to move the data, and now we're deciding which analytics to apply to that.